genre.
This is Agent Matt Bennett. I have been sent from the future, and I'm here to tell you that the series finale of Geek by Night is awesome. Welcome to Beyond Geek by Night, where we go behind the scenes of the Geek by Night podcast. On today's show, we'll be discussing the 38th episode, World of Tomorrow.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. We're about to go beyond Geek by Night. I'm your host, Matt Bennett. I'm joined today, as always, by writer and creator Scott Carelli.
Hi.
Writer, executive producer, and voice of William Medina, Nick Jimenez.
Hello.
And voice of Gwen Allen, Ray Ruzzo.
Hey.
Thanks for joining me, everybody. In episode 38, World of Tomorrow, our heroes find themselves in a radically transformed McKinney City, now filled with superpowered citizens. The episode opens with the last man's perspective, lamenting the city's new reality while he tinkers with the radio. As we journey through the city, we witness a standoff on a rooftop between our protagonists and their authoritarian doppelgangers, the Watchdogs. Meanwhile, the episode introduces a surreal twist, with buildings in McKinney City mysteriously moving. Lorelei is detained and taken to the Watchdog headquarters, where she confronts Billy about their past, unraveling a complex web of motivations and history. The plot thickens as Simon and his group learn from Simon's father, David, that the Watchdogs are actually clones created from their DNA. The episode culminates with Nathan's citywide broadcast, falsely labeling the underdogs as terrorists and further manipulating public perception. Ooh.
And also Charlie's a unicorn. Yes.
Which we will deep dive into. There's a lot of before we make it weird. So our little calm before the weird here. So yeah, Ray, I wanted to start by chatting with you. It's been a couple years now, actually, since I've had you on Beyond Geek by Night, and actually the last time that we spoke, we were kind of talking about the end of the series and things sort of wrapping up. But now we truly are there. I mean, we are wrapping production on the final episodes, and people are actually starting to listen to this final group. So I want to start with just kind of a really broad question of, like, what are your thoughts on the series ending in general? You've been part of Geek by Night for 15 or so years now, playing some sort of Ray Ruzzo going far back. So how are you feeling?
I think since its inception, pretty much, it's absolutely mind-blowing to me to think about how much of my life this has been eaten by Geek by Night, and I say that in the best way humanly possible. That it's just kind of been this running thread in the, sometimes in the very background because we weren't working on it actively. And I'm both really thrilled to see the culmination, to see how the story is all pulling together, and just the evolution of where we came from to where we are now. But I'm also, like, really emotional about it. Like, I definitely teared up recording some of my last lines, which then didn't turn out to be my last lines because I had to do reshoots. But yeah, it's this combination of being really sad that this chapter of my life is going to be over, but also so excited that it's at the way it's come together, and just the relationships that I have made with the rest of the cast and the crew have had such a huge impact on my life. Like, I don't know if I can, I went to Scott's wedding, and a bunch of cast and crew were there, and it was, people who I'd never been in the same room with before. It just immediate family. Mm-hmm. It was really, this has been a truly amazing experience in my life, and nothing is ever going to replace it.
I love that. And, obviously you play Gwen Allen on the show, and I wanted to ask you about your sort of relationship to Gwen. You've seen Gwen go through a lot of different things, and now we're seeing Gwen's storyline wrap up along with everybody else.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite Gwen moments or scenes looking back on the series that we're now 30 30 something episodes into?
It's really hard to pick. I was very nervous re-listening to this episode because I also had to play my evil self, and I'm like, oh god, how I needed to be sure. Like, I was worried about how it was going to sound, playing off of myself in some ways, and but it was also incredibly fun to play this evil fascist version of Gwen, who's just completely willing to, like, I'm going to drop someone off a building because you're not listening to me. No, she is, like, so near and dear to my heart. I feel like I don't know, like, she and I really grew together because when I came into the project, I was very young and still in college, had no idea what I was doing, had no idea who I was in many respects. As of course, if you listen to the original episodes, I am credited under a different name. I have gone through a massive series of changes, but she has still, like, stayed very close to me throughout all of them. And there is just something about her that is, she's very neurotic and very anxious, which is something that I identify with deeply, but there is this really thoughtful core to her. She's so concerned about the people in her life and the calls that she makes to protect those people. She carries a lot of responsibility on her shoulders, maybe more than she should necessarily take on alone sometimes.
Right.
But yeah, no, she is just, like, so near and dear to my heart. I back during the pandemic, I dressed up as her for Halloween. I made a couple of TikTok videos as Gwen. It was really fun.
Looking through to the end of the series, obviously without spoiling anything, since we're just doing spoilers up through World of Tomorrow, but how do you feel about what Gwen is going to go through between now and the series finale? Do you think it's a fitting end for her?
I was kind of surprised the first time I read it, but then the more I sat with it, the more right it felt. Obviously I can't give any spoilers, but I'm very happy for where she ends up in the end.
Awesome.
Because she has a lot of decisions to make. She has a lot of things to think about. A lot of it is about that, her tendency to take on more than she can necessarily handle at any given time. And I think her learning to balance her life and not drive herself crazy is a huge part of it. And that is its own form of character development. It's a very real form of character development in all of our lives, learning to, find boundaries.
For sure. Scott and Nick, you guys have been writing Gwen as a character for a very long time now, and among everybody else, her story is coming to an end. So how do you feel about Gwen's arc through the series and Gwen as a character? When you're writing a series for this many years, I imagine, the writing process evolves and characters kind of change and shift over time. But how do you feel about how Gwen's story ended up being portrayed?
A thought that I've been going back, listening to the episodes while also working on the episodes, and these characters they're always in my head, but they're a little more present than usual as of right now. And one thing I really, really love about what we were able to do with the finale, without getting into spoilers, is the Scott Cass and I make a lot of jokes about, God, we had too many kids. Like, we're like the Von Trapps, they're just in this, and we're editing these, like, minutes, 10 minutes, 15-minute long scenes, and just because it's like, the Council of Elrond, there's just, like, so many people. But when we get to the finale, when we get to the end of the show, I think it's a big enough ensemble to where every character can kind of, we gave each character the space to make decisions, to choose what they want out of their lives. And I don't think the show kind of has a unified message, and we'll talk about it at the end. But I really like how sometimes when you watch like the MCU, it's such a sprawling narrative, and you like, God, I really want Nebula to kill Thanos. That would be such a great story. She should kill Thanos but it's not her story. It's Steve's story. It's Tony's story. We've decided, you know? And so you make it out of the end of that story and you're like, man, they kind of shortchanged a few people I really liked because I guess it wasn't their story at the end of the day, which is kind of a bummer. And I think Geek by Night doesn't really have a lead. And the lead is this group of friends. And so when we get to the finale, they each are kind of like, I think I want to do this, or I think this is who, and I really am proud of that. They each kind of get the dignity to be like, well, this is what's best for me. Maybe it's not because characters will make complete opposite decisions of each other. With Gwen, I'm just so, again, without getting into spoilers, but like even up to this final season, I'm really proud of how they've grown as characters, how the performers have grown as actors and can handle the nuance. And I don't know, you can really feel those 15 years in their voices and all of the actors, of just like how comfortable they are playing these characters at this point. Sure.
Speaking of some of these other characters, Nick, I wanted to talk about Billy for a little bit. Sort of the same question. Billy is a character who, from our perspective, has changed significantly throughout the series. When we first saw him, he was just sort of Max Carmichael's lackey following along, and now he's really at the center of the end game of the series here. Looking back, what are some of your favorite Billy moments or scenes? And this could be from the perspective of a writer or an actor, because you have the unique dual responsibility of both creating and living as Billy.
Thank you. I'm really good at compartmentalization, so I am able to like.
Hold on, wait. Can I tell a story? I don't remember. Please. I don't remember which part of this arc that we're in that this happened. I might have been this episode, but there was a line that we had written, and everything was fine. Like this, we love the script. Like, let's put it out. And then Nick goes to record it, and he was like having an existential crisis while trying to get through this Billy line. And he was just like, this line. Why? Why did we write this? Why? Like, he's like losing his mind and he's so mad. And it was like, and it's just like, just a good way of showing the compartmentalization between writer Nick and actor Nick being two completely different people.
and then to add like a third layer, I'm directing my last episode and I'm going through it and I'm never more critical of Nick the writer than when I'm not writing. Uh-huh. And so I'm editing a Billy scene, and sure enough, there is a scene where I'm like, and in order to turn off what the f*** am I saying? What is this bullshit? What the f*** were we thinking? And then editor Nick is like, yeah. Tell him, actor Nick. But then, you hear it, and you're like, oh, it's fine. It works. It's just, you're your own harshest critic. But I think, anytime Billy's such like a guarded character, mm-hmm. and he plays his card so close to the chest that anytime you really get him to be vulnerable and exposed, it's really interesting. So his scenes with Lorelai in this were mm-hmm. really fun to perform and direct. This is such a minor scene, but I keep coming back to that scene that he has with Charlie in Supermax, where they have like an argument and he's like, get out of here. Like, you don't have any authority. Like, I'm going to do whatever I want. And Charlie's like, you know what? I don't need this guy. I'm going to betray this guy. And that is like a microcosm of, to me as an actor, I'm like, everything wrong with Billy is in that one scene of mm-hmm. like, he doesn't know how to work with people. He doesn't know how to respect people or treat people like allies because he's so afraid of getting betrayed or hurt again. Mm-hmm. And so I'm obsessed with the idea that he's kind of like the architect of his own, like, strife, or like he makes his own messes without even realizing it. I think.
Sure.
Yeah. I think the thing that's interesting about Billy and looking back at like where he started and where he is now, in each of our sort of eras, we'll call them. I mean, they're seasons, but you know, in like season 1, right? You have like Billy who is like pretending to be something that he's not. He's manipulating someone, manipulating a situation, only to like reveal his true intentions at the end of the season. And then season 2, he's like, I'm everything I've ever wanted to be. I'm on top of the world and I'm evil and doing my thing, blah, 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 blah. But also that's a facade as well. And so now we're in season 3 and we're just starting to like meet like raw nerve Billy of like what's under all of those facades. And I just think Nick is killing it. I mean, he's had to play 3 essentially distinctive characters and also link them all together as one.
Right.
And he's been doing a killer job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Just this moment, the moment where he's kind of revealing that Nathan has like completely just taken control of everything and he can't really handle the monster that he is unleashed is a really phenomenal moment, because he's been very desperate to do everything on his own. Like, he has had complete control in his mind as he has been manipulating people, and oops, nope, not anymore. Well, shit, what do we do now?
I also just love that Billy has become like, you know, as soon as he gets power, he becomes everything that he hates and has absolutely no realization of this. Like, he is everything that he is accusing Lorelai of being. You know, what he did to Charlie is exactly what Lorelai did to him from his perspective, but he had no qualms about doing it to someone else. Yeah, I don't know. He's an interesting fellow, that Billy.
So getting to some of the plot of World of Tomorrow, as the characters all realize that their evil doppelgangers are made from their own DNA and sort of faced with the prospect of this time loop. Scott, I wanted to get your thoughts on sort of writing time travel in general. Time travel is just really hard to write. And I'm curious to know how you approach it, because this isn't even a time loop within a single episode. You guys have tackled this before, but this is very, very large, has widespread effects and covers multiple episodes in a long time period. And I'm just curious how you approach writing time travel like this.
Not easily. I think that what was really important for us out the gate was to establish what the rules of time travel are in this universe. I think that having internal logic, that's the key, I think, to time travel stories, is having internal logic to your story. You don't need to focus on all of this other stuff, because then that's when it starts to get confusing. That's why the time travel in Endgame doesn't make any sense, because they're constantly referencing like other time travel stuff. And it's like, well, wait, is it like that? Or is it like this? Or is it like how you said it was 5 minutes? Like which one is it? And so we really tried to fight making any references to time travel stories. I don't think we do, actually, like over the course of this. If we do, it might be like a throwaway joke that's like, I don't know, but we don't make a lot of reference to it. Yeah. And so we tried to just really hone in on like what the logic of how this time travel works in our universe. And sort of, yeah, just focus on that. And then in terms of like breaking this story, I have to say, like, the reason that this took so long, and I'm aware of how long it took. It took us like 3 years to get here. But part of that is because, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but I believe we wrote 2 episodes that we completely threw away.
Wow.
That were in this
part
arc
of the story.
Yeah, this part of the story, because originally this was 1 episode, and we were like, oh well, maybe it's 2 episodes, and then we started writing the second half, and then we were like, I don't think we like this, and we just threw the whole thing out and started over again, and ended up turning into a 3-episode arc, which is what we're in right now.
The version that I remember is there was kind of like, in my head, I call it the James Cameron draft, where there's a version where we actually meet more McKinney citizens.
Yes.
And they're very like underground resistance, like, it's the Watchdogs, get back. And we have like a dark ride sequence basically where they're like leading the underdogs through the tunnels and the power couple's chasing them.
Yeah.
And then for some reason we hit a brick and we hit a wall and we were like, I don't think any of this works. And we threw out.
Yeah. I think what happened was like, it became too distant from our show. And it was like, it was fun seeing these characters in this situation, in this James Cameron-esque like world. But I think we got so far removed from what the show was that like we all felt a little uncomfy and we were like, is this really what anyone would want from this? And so we just threw it out and started over and went back to the characters and to the story that we had been telling for, 35 episodes at this point, and 36, I don't know, something like that. And just started over. And I think that's around when we redo, that's when, So it started with the roof sequence and then it escalated to like different places from there. And then we threw all of that out and just went back to the roof. And then I think that's when we created The Last Man to sort of replace the entire McKinney resistance. We turned the entire resistance into one dude, and made him
just one angry radicalized dude. That
the last dude.
Yeah, the last dude. The last dude. Yeah. So yeah, that's how that happened. And you know what? That is not the last time that would happen this season. That we would write an entire script and throw the whole thing out. That's happened at least one more time. This season
that I can think of.
Yeah, well, at least one more time.
I think that's so interesting because, you mentioned that it has been a couple years since you guys were first breaking these episodes. And obviously there was a break between season 2 and season 3. But one benefit that comes from having a self-produced show like this is you do have the creative freedom to backtrack and to throw away a script. And I'm curious, to know more about sort of that creative freedom of being able to make such big choices like that. If we were all working on a deadline or something, you would sort of be forced to live with the consequences of your decisions. And, I was surprised and interested to hear that, entire scripts were thrown out and restarted, just for the sake of the story.
Yeah. I mean, it is freeing that we're able to do that we're in that situation. However, while that is true, we lost a lot of Patreon subscribers during that time, because they wanted new episodes now and they didn't understand what was taking so long. Cause not everybody gets that we're trying to make the best story and we can't do this as a full-time job. And, if we want to do it right, sometimes we have to let ourselves go down the wrong path to figure out that we're heading toward a dead end. And that's something that you can do in a writer's room that you're in for like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Right. But we don't have that luxury. And so sometimes we do our best and then find out that isn't the right move. And so then we have to backtrack, and all of that is going to exacerbate how long everything takes. And it's unfortunate, and I feel bad because to me, the studio, right, the people want with deadlines, right, that is both like me internally in my brain, yelling at me to like finish this, but also the listeners and how long we've made them wait for more episodes and how many of them have, likely abandoned us because they just assume it's never going to happen. And that's unfortunate, but like, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And hopefully they will like check back in randomly at some point and see that we finally posted those episodes and then be really thrilled with the results. And maybe I'll hear from some of them. That would be really nice. If you abandoned us, I would love to hear from you again. Just to know that you did actually get your ending, because that's really, ultimately, that is all I care about.
Yeah, and I keep thinking about the listener who, like, a year from now is like, oh, hey, Geek by Night, and just listens to all of the final season, like, in a day or in a weekend. And
just
like,
binges it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why creative people hate the binge model.
Sure.
You spend years of your life and they burn through it in 8 hours or whatever.
Does anybody else have any thoughts or memories or anything like that having to do with this episode, World of Tomorrow, that they want to add?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about the watchdogs,
Mm-hmm.
the doppeldogs, as I'll now call them. You know, going back to these actors, when I was sitting down to direct this episode, and it was so much fun because the underdogs are so cuddly and empathetic and nice and soft, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. And so just to hear like Ray and Simon or Gretchen just be like jerks and like fascist assholes was really fun. And I think I was a little worried of like, oh, is this going to be confusing in an audio format, you know? And I'm totally biased because, you know, I know every line and whatever, but I think especially I want to shout out Chris. He recorded each of his lines like all the way through in like very specific ways. One was very like Matrix agent, like very slow and calculated and talking like this. And then he recorded what I ended up using in my head, what I called Evil Crash Bandicoot.
That is a great descriptor, actually, of how that came across.
And it was great, and I think I think I really fell in love with the watchdogs in this episode. Like, there's something very anime about Agent Simon.
Sure.
He's just kind of like that little evil anime protagonist. But yeah, no, I thought they all did a great job.
If that's all the closing thoughts.
Well, I do want to say, I don't know, not to shout out myself, but I just want to mention that like, the opening scene, the cold open of this, and the rooftop action sequence when the last man ship arrives, like all of that stuff, that was like, I don't know. I was really proud of my sound design in those sequences because I had never reached for anything that crazy before in the show. And I really wanted to like show the listeners that like we had reached a new pinnacle of the show in terms of like, oh yeah, like we're not in a comic shop anymore. This is crazy. And I'm just really proud of how that turned out. I'm like really proud of my sound design just in general this season. And I think you'll hear more of that next week and the week after for sure.
I was about to say, it's kind of a warm up for what's coming down the
pipeline. Right. Totally. But it was sort of like me wanting to make a statement of like, you know, this isn't your daddy's Geek by Night anymore. I think
it's really, this season is so interesting because of the fundamental loss of the central location of the series. Because in a way, the comic book store is its own character.
True. And
having lost that, everyone has to now adjust around this empty, this lack. And I feel like you guys did a really good job of not only like taking that opportunity, but taking it and like just running with it. Like you took off sprinting and did some really crazy cool things with this season. And I just thought it was phenomenal. And I was, you know, having known you for so long, Scott, like to see how much you had grown as a writer and a storyteller, it's just been so delightful. So,
thank you, Ray.
With that, I want to give a thank you again to all of our guests today, Ray, Scott, and Nick, for joining me. And thank you to all of you, the fans, the underdogs, for listening today. If you'd like to support the show, please join the Dueling Genre Patreon at duelinggenre.com/support. You'll also get access to classic Geek by Night episodes, scripts, and other behind-the-scenes materials, as well as bonus content from some of Dueling Genre's best shows, including weekly episodes of Dueling Genre Tonight. You can also tell your friends, families, and followers to subscribe to Geek by Night on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you're listening to this right now. Finally, if you like our show, please leave a positive rating for us on iTunes. Thank you so much for going beyond Geek by Night with us. Have a super day. Get it, super? Because the super heroes.
But